Well, leaders of last week's coup in Guinea-Bissau have closed the country's air and sea borders amid rising pressure on them to give up power. The West African Regional Bloc, ECOWAS, is sending a delegation to Guinea-Bissau in a bid to help resolve the country's political crisis.
The international community has strongly condemned last week's military coup and called for a return to civilian rule. The power grab on Thursday disrupted campaigning for a presidential runoff vote that had been set for April the 29th. And now, the Guinea-Bissau coup is only the latest in the West African region. In Mali, a military coup toppled a democratically elected president last month and only handed over power to a civilian interim president after international pressure. For more perspective on coups in West Africa, we are joined in the studio by Gnaka LaGoke, a political analyst and a founder of the revival of Pan Africanism Forum. Welcome, Gnaka.
Okay, thanks.
Now, one of the things that we can say that has characterized the particularly two coups that took place in West Africa recently is that they didn't seem to make sense. In both cases, elections were just around the corner. Can you give a sense of what you make of, for example, the Guinea-Bissau coup that took place last week?
Yes, I agree with you that both coups did not make sense, but they are the reflection of the state of democracy and the state of social life in those countries. For instance, in Mali, we knew that ATT was about to leave, but this country was facing like a civil war because those Tuaregs have attacked. They came back from Libya, and then people saw that he did not do what he has to do in order to prevent the war to resume.
And they couldn't wait for him to leave so that the next president could handle it?
Yeah, and I agree with you that he was not an effective leader, and I did not agree with the coup either. But I was trying to explain why the soldiers can decide to go and take over in such circumstances. Mm-hmm. Now, for the overall thing, we should know that there are reasons why we have coups in Africa.
But mostly, let's say this, there are more coups in West Africa than there have been anywhere in Africa. And in fact, lately people are forgetting about coups in East, Central and Southern Africa. What is this about coups in West Africa?
But thank you very much, my friend. It's a very good question. It is related to the way those African countries were ruled during the colonial time. We know that the French people implemented what we call the direct rule, while the British colonized those African countries through the indirect rule. So through the indirect rule, they gave a sense of responsibility to those African leaders, and this is continuing. And the French involvement to choose and pick the leaders in Africa, it's also part of the tragedy we're facing with those multiple coups in Africa.
Yeah, but the question is, generally the military is supposed to understand that their place is in the military bases and waiting to ward off any international threat to their sovereignty. Why do they meddle in local politics? Why does it become their business to step in when they think something is not happening correctly?
Greed, grievance, and the desire, or the so-claimed desire, to rectify wrongs, and all those things put together can put any individual or any entity in the society to think about a coup in Africa.
Yeah, you're a scholar. Have you kind of tried to investigate what the difference is between perhaps the mentality of the militaries in the other regions of Africa, East, Central, Southern Africa, that doesn't make them quickly try to step up to the plate when they think that the government is not doing things correctly, as opposed to the mentality of the military in the West African region?
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. There is one thing people have to look at. The French is too present in the African domestic affairs, and all those coups we're talking about. We know that the French government, since the post-era, since the independence, they try to choose and put some leaders, or they even try to cause some coup in those countries. So it is also part of the fate.
So are you saying that the French sometimes interfere by literally sponsoring coups, getting into the armies of this country?
This is what they do. Yes. They do the same thing, the same way, they choose those political leaders, the same way they also try to manipulate those military to do coups. But I'm not saying that Africans are not responsible. That's why I was talking about greed, grievances, and all those conditions that can push a military or an African country to do a coup.
Yes, one of the things that came out of this coup is that a very strong opposition, condemnation of these coups, and actually at some point they say there's a threat of intervention if those guys don't hand over power to the civilians. What is your take on that?
Oh, you talking about Guinea-Bissau?
Yes.
Or you talking about other? No, I think that they can. I'm always against a military intervention, because when people go there, they go there with the selfish interest. They don't always have the interest of the people at heart. But I think that the economic sanction and all the things put together can force, the leaders in Guinea-Bissau, to relinquish power.
Well, thank you very much, Gnaka, and I hope next time we have a little more time to talk even deeper into those things. Well, our thanks to Gnaka LaGoke, Washington-based political analyst, for joining us today right here on In Focus.